Rudy's Revelation.
Hey everybody, welcome to a special report, Rudy's Revelation. It is July 6th, Saturday. So today we're going to be talking about Joe Biden's ABC interview. But the New York Times has a breaking story here. Biden is gaining ground on Trump in battleground states despite disaster debate in a new poll, it shows. But the problem here is that I guess the Democratic electorate is fooled by Joe Biden, but most other people aren't. So, oh my gosh, just stay with me here, folks. Oh my God. So, in any case, President Biden managed to gain ground on former President Donald Trump in key battleground states and trails only by 2%, even after his disastrous debate performance. Trump, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, leads Democrat Joe Biden 47-45 in crucial states needed to win the November election, according to Bloomberg News Morning Consult tracking poll released today. It's the smallest gap since the poll began in October. Although Biden is losing in Pennsylvania, the state where he grew up, he now leads Trump in Michigan and Wisconsin. But I'm moving over here to the Wall Street Journal that says Biden's ABC interview showed president in denial. The Democrat dug in, unwilling to entertain criticisms from his own party or acknowledge he's losing his race against Donald Trump. Which he is, but moving on, Fox News is also reporting that radio host who interviewed Biden after debate reveals campaign sent her questions beforehand. The Biden campaign said in a statement that it was not at all uncommon practice. That's true, but the radio host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, who interviewed President Biden on Wednesday, revealed during a discussion on CNN that the president's team provided a list of questions to approve prior to the interview. And the ones she approved, they went over. But most of the questions there were dealing with, just like the ABC interview, was dealing with his debate performance or whether or not he's okay to run as president. The New York Post is also reporting David Axelrod blasts sad Biden ABC interview. Somebody really needs to be honest. And even the New York Post and David Axelrod is saying that this guy is in denial and that he's not really following what other people are thinking or even the calls to step aside, which apparently he's not doing, which sets up his removal. A top advisor to former President Obama offered a dismissal assessment of President Biden's make-or-break interview on ABC. David Axelrod, the architect of Obama's two successful campaigns, called the Friday sit-down sad to watch. When Stephanopoulos asked him if he'd be willing to take a cognitive test, he said, I take a cognitive test every day. And that may be true, but 75% of American people think he fails. But he is gaining in the polls. And then the New York Post also reports that Biden can't stop bleeding support from Dems after sad ABC interview. And I guess they're really talking about the Democratic politicians because he is gaining in the polls, which means the electorate seems to be convinced that he's okay to go ahead and run as president, even though, as the senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy, said, you can't make a cat walk backwards, which means you're only going to get older, and if you're suffering any cognitive failure due to your aging, that's only going to get worse, not better. So the story goes on to say President Biden continued to bleed support from Democrats Saturday who called on him to leave the 2024 presidential race after his Friday ABC interview failed to silence worries about his age and cognitive abilities. Even Minnesota Representative Angie Craig became the fifth sitting House Democrat to urge Biden to call it quits. As an elected leader, I feel responsibility to be honest about what I believe, even when it's hard to hear. So, wow, that's something indeed to think about. So moving on to the last article here from the New York Post. President Biden's physician met with Parkinson's disease specialist in the White House. A top Washington, D.C. neurologist had a meeting with President Biden's personal doctor at the White House earlier this year, visitor logs reviewed by the Post show. Dr. Kevin Kennard, a Parkinson's disease specialist at Walter Reed Medical Center, met with Dr. Kevin O'Connor and two others at the White House Residence Clinic on January 17th, according to the records, which emerge as questions continue to swirl about the 81-year-old president's mental health in the wake of the disastrous debate that he had on, I believe it was a week. Was it just Thursday or a week Thursday? Well, we're going to get, we have Perry here, my friend Perry from Florida, to join us in the discussion. So, Perry, are you there, my friend?
Over the last 4 minutes.
I'm sorry. Perry, are you there? Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, there's a lot to cover. So let's start with the one thing that caught my attention most in your bullet points, and that is the interview that he had with Stephanopoulos. I'm sure most of your audience knows that George Stephanopoulos is not a journalist. They call him a journalist. He's not. He might have gone to J school, but he, along with Paul Begalia and James Carville, were the architects of Clinton's two campaigns. And if your audience members want to go back and look at the documentary that was done during the 92 campaign, when all of the exact quote bimbo eruptions supposedly was made by Hildebeest during the 92 campaign, and he was put in charge of putting the bimbo eruptions to bed. And there was during the actual recording of this documentary they were doing during the campaign, Stephanopoulos was on the phone with someone. People claimed it was Paula Jones, and literally said, "You don't want to go forward with this. If you go forward," and I'm paraphrasing, of course, because we're talking about literally 32 years ago. "If you go forward with this, you will never work a day again in your life. You'll never know a day of peace. We will destroy you. And nobody is going to believe you anyway, because it's your word against Bill Clinton."
Right.
And so this is who ABC puts in charge of their weekly national show. So the fact that he was interviewing, if you want to call it that, he was interviewing Uncle Joe. There's no reason why partisans like me and you don't believe for a second that, wouldn't believe for a second that Uncle Joe hadn't been given the questions prior to sitting down with Georgie Porgy. That's number one. Number two, I will never accept whatever is in that interview unless I'm allowed to see all the outtakes. Because I guarantee you that was not an interview that was conducted by asking questions A, B, C, D through Z. And Biden was able to answer every one of them without failing. I guarantee you they had to stop the cameras. They had to go back. They had to get him repositioned. And somebody had to whisper in his ear and say, "Mr. President, you need to answer the question this way next time George asks it." I guarantee it, because the man can't put two sentences together without somebody talking to him. The fact that we're only now learning that a Parkinson specialist from Walter Reed was summoned to the White House to have a consult between himself, Biden's personal physician and Biden in January, and we're only learning about this now. Not that we're surprised by it, Rudy. None of us are surprised by it. But the point is, it's being held from the American people, along with the fact that everything partisans like us have been saying, and the alternative media has been saying for 4 years now about Joe Biden. It ain't the same old Joe, number one. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because Lord knows I think he's sniffed enough girls' hair, and I think he's taken enough showers with his daughter, Ashley, for all of us to turn our heads up and say, please go away. But the point still remains. He is not the same man he was prior to running 4 years ago. The fact that he's now supposedly within the margin of error after the debates, well, again, I haven't looked at the inside polling numbers, the actual numbers that count, which is what percentage were conservatives, what percentage were liberals, how many were Republicans, how many were Democrats, how many were non-affiliated, how many people support the most important views of one side versus the other. We haven't read the demographics of these so-called polls that we're being told are national polls. So until I have time, or you have time to delve into that, the fact that they're now coming out and saying, after such a poor showing, and now all of a sudden, after the debate, a week and 3 days after the debate, suddenly everybody wants Joe Biden over I'm talking about undecideds now, wants Joe Biden over Donald Trump after seeing the man literally fall on his face. I mean, it doesn't add up. Right. And so that, along with the Stephanopoulos pseudo interview, I think it plays into our favor, quite honestly. I don't know who's doing this inside the machine of the Democrat Party, but if they're going to be successful in putting all the naysayers, I mean, when you have people like Axelrod and Bagalia and, pick your poison, doesn't matter who, and they're all saying from last Thursday until this past weekend, they're all saying how humiliating and how painful it was to watch Joe Biden give such a poor example during the debate. When you have all these Democrats saying that, I mean, the Republicans are going to say it, even though we know it's true. But when Democrats jumped all over him in the last 10 days, and if you want to rehash this, remember, a lot of Democrats were saying this debate is Joe Biden's interview with the American people to prove that he is capable of running the country for another 4 years. Well, if that was the case, and everybody, whether you're left or right or center, have all said he failed miserably, right, how does he go up in the polls? Yeah. So this only helps us. Yeah. It only helps Trump, because they want to replace him, and they can't if the polls show he's gaining ground on Trump. So my attitude is, keep saying it. Yeah. We got 4 months until D-Day. So, or shall I say V-Day. And so go ahead, say whatever you want to say. Do me a favor. Do conservatives a favor. Do the Republican Party a favor. Keep supporting this feeble old man who doesn't know how to get himself out of a paper bag. And then we'll see at the polls on November 5th. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. About my thing with the ABC interview, it seemed too canned, the whole thing. First of all, it was only 20 minutes, which is a suspect right there. To me, he probably spent 2 to 3 hours filming Joe Biden and, like you said, answering questions in a certain way. But the thing that fools the neophyte is the fact is that Stephanopoulos seems sincere and asking very pointed questions. But you put this ABC interview together with his recent speeches, not his recent radio interviews, and he did have speech. He did have a July 4th speech. There were gaffes, and some interviews. There were gaffes. But his last, I think it was was it not to the veterans? It was another speech that he made recently that seemed to go off without a hitch. It's still, I think that was the one yesterday. It still seems like it's a little canned. You put that together with all the bronzer he put on, and it almost seems like someone's trying too hard. And for those of us, in the know or that are suspect, seem that they're putting all their weight into these events. And if he doesn't, and we're going to talk about this in just a second, I want your comment on that. He was supposed to have a press event right after, when was the debate? It was a week Thursday, right?
Correct.
So he's had all this time. It's been over 10 days, and he still hasn't had a presser. And people have brought up in the White House press briefing, if he's here, why doesn't he come out and answer for himself and face the press unedited? And he won't do that. So there have been no events that are live given his short speaking engagements. And so there really hasn't been put through the test, because when they announced the ABC interview, even the media was like, it's not going to be live. So it's not going to put to rest any concerns about his mental health. So he never did have that presser. And you have other reports coming out. I think you heard about this, about Monica Crowley. If people don't know her, she's a conservative pundit, had something special to report as well. So you want to comment on the presser and what Monica Crowley said?
On both those points. On the presser, what I found concerning was that they made a big deal when Biden was either getting on or getting off Air Force One the next day. So it would have been Friday morning at, I want to say, was it Wilmington, North Carolina? I know it was North Carolina. And they said, stay tuned. It wasn't Biden, but the campaign said, stay tuned, because the president is going to give a press conference and you'll have all your questions answered then. And that was supposed to happen on Friday, either Friday afternoon or Friday evening. It didn't happen. They pushed it off to Saturday. Saturday got pushed off to Sunday. And then it just slowly left the news cycle. And maybe that was their plan all along. I don't know. But then with regard to Monica Crowley, who was also, by the way, Undersecretary of the Treasury under Donaldus Magnus, better known as Donald Trump. She is not only a brilliant mind, she is a great writer. She's a lot like Betsy McCoy, who you know, and she really doesn't deal in innuendo. And both she and Dinesh D'Souza both commented on their X page that Biden suffered a medical emergency while on Air Force One within the last 24 hours. It happened sometime yesterday.
Really?
And well, now I haven't confirmed that,
right? But
there are other people who have not verified it but claimed it happened. Okay, and what I'm finding so amusing is all the Democrats are coming out of the woodworks now like cockroaches and they're all making a hullabaloo over, you guys are just spreading rumors. You're losing in the campaign. You don't have a candidate that can win, so you're spreading lies and blah blah blah. Well, look, you go back, and this woman has been in the public eye for at least 20 years. I remember when she was a regular on Fox News back during the Clinton years, and she was on. Many people will remember Hannity and Combs before Alan Combs retired, because, as we found out later, through Monica Crowley, whose sister was married to Alan Combs until his death several years ago. The whole reason why he retired was because he was ill, and Monica would debate as a guest all the time with her brother-in-law, and we're talking about the late 1990s. We're talking about during the Clinton years and during the Bush 43 years. She's been in the public eye all these years. No one has ever accused her of spreading vicious lies and innuendo. And I can say the same thing about Dinesh D'Souza, who's another brilliant mind. And of course, Dinesh has done many documentaries now, 3 or 4 that I know of, that have done exceptionally well. And so these are serious people. It's like, it would be like saying, I'm trying to find a Democrat I could talk about that wouldn't be a liar, but the thought escapes me right now as to what name I could use.
Yeah, Dennis Kucinich isn't in office anymore, so.
Yeah, how true. But it would almost be like saying one of my heroes, William F. Buckley, made the whole thing up. William F. Buckley always spoke from a position of strength and knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why he always humiliated his foe on firing line. He knew the subject better than the person who was arguing against him. And to call William F. Buckley a liar, that's what you're doing when you call either of these two individuals liars and merchants in innuendo. They don't have a history of being that.
Yeah.
And so my concern is, again, now that we know Biden was seen by a neurologist in the White House, right alongside his own personal physician 6-7 months ago, and you put that together with how he appears out in public, and then you hear from two people whose word can be taken seriously, that they have it on high authority, that the man suffered a major health issue. We don't know what it is. I mean, again, who's running the country?
Yeah.
So,
and I think the electorate doesn't, the Democratic minions aren't aware that Biden had 2 brain operations and after 2 aneurysms. So he is cognitively impaired because of that. And most people don't remember the eye bleed from the debates in 2020.
Right. Right.
He's had, some very serious health issues as of late. And so none of this surprises me, the fact that, he's being seen by doctors and that he might seem cognitively impaired, because frankly, I think he is. And even just his physical gait is a strong indication of that.
Right. But that goes back to the question, Rudy, who's running the country?
Yeah.
And it's something to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing. Look, there wasn't a single thing about that traitor Bill Clinton, and I can say that with a full authority because, again, we all know about Bernie Schwartz and Laral, okay? Bill Clinton at least had control of his mental faculties. the same thing would be said even about Ronaldus Magnus, right up to the end of his administration in late 1988. Okay, yeah, he wasn't the same old Dutch he was 8 years earlier, but my God, he was 78 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
He still had.
Yeah, he was failing for sure, but not to this extent, I don't think.
Not to this extent, no. And so my anger, frustration, and concern has not to do with the fact that Uncle Joe is not in control of things. It is who is. That's number one. Number two, why did they do this to our country? It can't simply be because you hate Orange Man that much. You're willing to put 330, or now people are saying with all the illegal aliens. Do you know the recent number that came out this week since Uncle Joe became president? He's allowed now, they're saying 30 million illegal aliens into the country.
Yeah. I heard that number.
Right. Now think about that. That's on top of the other 30 million
that we're already hearing
that snuck in over the prior 30 years. Okay? Yeah. There were 3 million that snuck in during Reagan's day that we gave immunity to and now have become citizens.
Yeah.
Okay? So you want to know what's going on? It has less to do with Uncle Joe and more to do with the guy behind the curtain that's pulling all the strings. And I want to know who these motherfuckers are, and I want to see them go to jail. And once prosecuted and convicted for treason, I want to see my first ever firing squad. Yeah. That's what I want to see. Yeah. Because they foisted this husk of a man onto the country, and they have put us in peril in many ways, not just economically, not just because of COVID policy, but we now have to worry about the world blowing up. We are closer today at the risk of nuclear annihilation than any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis. We are within, I never thought this would be possible. We are inside the 30-second limit.
30 seconds to midnight,
30 seconds to midnight. Even during the darkest days of the evil empire, Reagan's first term, when he was bound and determined to bury the evil empire, then we were 5 minutes away from midnight.
Yeah, we got close.
We're 30 seconds away.
Yeah, we were close
30 seconds away.
Yeah, it's really despicable. But this is, I never thought we'd get here, but we certainly got here. Is it Obama running the country? Is it the Democrats? And I've said this continually, is that it's elite cabal. It is the donor class that actually is controlling policy. It's not the politician. It's actually plausible deniability. Let's put an idiot out there, and then we can just blame him for all our policy. They seem like failures, but I believe it's actually an agenda. It's the same thing I think they're going to do with AI. They're going to, the world's going to end up, in a shitty place, and they're going to go, whoopsie, it was just because of AI. So you think it's Obama, or you have, what is your inkling into who is running the country? Because Ron Klain isn't there anymore. I thought it was him, but.
I think it's a cabal. I think Obama is definitely the titular head of this cabal, but he can't do it alone. I believe he's doing it in conjunction with the Clintons. I honestly believe that. And when I say in conjunction, I'm not just talking about the two families getting together. I'm talking about all the tentacles that come with those two administrations. There are a lot of people that are currently serving Biden in the White House that worked for Obama. And a lot of the people that worked for Obama worked for Clinton.
Yeah.
Okay? If we go back to Obama's first term, his attorney general worked as an under attorney general for Bill Clinton. Okay? Same thing with the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State. These were all people who did not serve inside the cabinet, but served directly under the cabinet officers. And they were brought up. And now they're working. Some of them are working as cabinet officials, and some of them are working as undersecretaries, but they're all connected to the Clintons and the Obamas. Yeah. And when you figure that the scuttlebutt now, since the debate, now that the dust is starting to settle a little bit, prior to the polls that were manufactured and distributed amongst all the lame brain media in the last 36 hours, they were floating Hildebeest as the sacrificial lamb. So, now they can't do that because now the media is talking about how Biden's up in the polls.
Yeah.
So you see how this really plays to our favor?
Yeah. Well,
all the disarray, all the confusion, all of the circular firing squads going off right now within the Democratic machine. And this is, that's why I said, Trump is walking around clicking his heels saying, I did it to him again. And it's going to be very interesting to see how because tomorrow's Sunday. So we're going to have the Sunday shows. Monday, you're going to be talking about it on your podcast. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the media, and I'm talking about the lame brain media, try to spin this. Because right now, the way they're directing all this is, there's nothing to see here, folks. Biden is fine. Look at what's happening in the polls. He's rebounding. There is no way that man could honestly rebound after the performance and the last 8-9 days.
Yeah. I think,
no way.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think Obama and Hillary Clinton are not part of the cabal, but they're like the top of the political rung, and so the orders are coming down through them into the political machine. But I think that Joe Biden is being set up for removal. I don't think he's going to last. I think there are people on the inside telling him to stay, and I think the poll numbers are helping him to stay so he can be removed, because he needs to be removed to allow Kamala Harris to become president and then put in the B team for the 2024 ticket. At least that's my take on it. So I think he's being set up within his own circle to be removed, that, convincing him to stay so he can be removed either with a health episode thanks to the CIA or the 25th Amendment or impeachment, that Democrats teaming up with Republicans. We already have, 6 sitting Democrats now in the House that are not backing Biden. And I think this is going to steamroll into August and into the convention. So final word, though, Perry.
Well, you actually went exactly in the direction I wanted to go. I really think, as I said last Saturday, stay tuned, folks. It's going to get really interesting. There's going to be a crescendo moment. It's going to happen leading into and during the Democrat convention. And anything is possible. I just don't think – I know, and I've been saying this to your listening audience now for months and months and months. It ain't going to be Uncle Joe. It's only a question of who and when it's announced, and it's in the best interest of the star chamber within the Democrat Party that they hold their cards close to their vest. They already know what they're going to do, and it doesn't matter what Jill Biden says. They're not going to let her husband take the rest of the Democrat Party down with him on November 5th. There will be a new ticket, and the question now is who's it? My money is on Hildebeest, and they might even convince Boy Wonder out there in Sacramento to run as number 2 on the ticket, because he can't be hurt by that.
Yeah.
If the ticket fails, it's never the vice president. It's never the vice presidential nominee that you point the finger to if you lose. Yeah. It's always who's at the head of the ticket. Yeah. And it gives him a chance to be seen by the electorate so that he's in the number 1 position to win the nomination in 2028. That's how I think this is going to go.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's certainly a good guess. To me, it's almost the choices for the new ticket are almost immaterial. You know, it doesn't matter who it is. It's the change we have to look at. And again, pulling the fast one, and we see what happened with WikiLeaks and the thing that came out of the DC emails and the WikiLeaks. It showed how the DC or the DNC operates when choosing a ticket, you know, burning Bernie Sanders twice, burning Hillary Clinton in favor of Obama. And so they know what they're doing. And like you said, they're holding their cards close to their vest, and they know what play they're going to make. And they're just making a lot of noise ahead of time to give it all plausible deniability. Like, oh, yes, this was all done in conjunction with what Democrats or Democrat politicians want in the DNC. One last word before we close out, Perry.
Well, actually, it has very little to do with what we were talking about. You mentioned WikiLeaks. You do know, I think you talked about it on one of your shows last week, when Julian Assange was released, WikiLeaks scrubbed their database on all the documents from the DNC that were spilled during the.
Don't say.
You did cover that, didn't you?
Yeah. Don't say Seth Rich. Not on this channel.
I didn't. You did. And so I think there's going to be more of the same. The bottom line is what we've been saying since last week, Rudy. Stay tuned, folks. It's going to get really interesting. Every day there's another story that's coming out now, and who knows what is actually going to file out from this story that was broken in the last 36 hours.
Yeah, don't believe what you hear. Just watch what happens, and let's try to make sense of it all together. All right, thanks for joining me tonight, Perry, for this special report. Hey, I'll talk to you Tuesday.
I'm looking forward to it, buddy, and have a great remainder of the weekend.
Yeah, happy 4th.
Happy 4th to you, pal.
All right,
bye-bye now.
See ya. Well, there goes Perry. Well, that was interesting. We were talking tonight about the ABC interview and how it seemed like really contrived, and then we found out from the radio interviews that he gave that the White House was sending questions to the interviewers, and between the two of them settling on what questions were going to be asked, pre-canned answers, I'm sure. And what happened probably with George Stephanopoulos on ABC is, you know, they probably did many takes of each question, and they made it seem like it was hard-hitting, but it probably wasn't. It was probably all contrived. And it fooled the political neophytes, but it didn't fool us, and it's not fooling the politicos either, who want Joe Biden to step aside. He won't. He will be removed one way or another. Stay tuned for that, and it's going to be interesting, not only going into this week, but into the convention. So thanks for joining me tonight for this special report on Saturday, July 6th, and we will see you soon. I'll see you Monday. Peace out. Respect.